Well, I'm delighted to be here with all of you. Most of the talks that I give are to corporate clients or hospitals or scientists, and I have to couch out of care, which is part of what HeartMath's about, and but be conscious of terminology so that it relates to people and has as few triggers and associations as possible to get the message that I want to convey across. And that would be the first thing I'd like to say as we go through these different slides. They asked me to convey our lessons learned, our wisdom learned. And the first lesson learned is know your audience. Who are you trying to talk to? And understand their language and speak in their language if you can. That is part of what we call heart intelligence. And we've been completely dedicated to the heart, one point at least, since we started HeartMath in 1990. Doc Childrey, our founder, had a vision in his meditations and his service work to the planet that technology was going to advance its science fiction type potentials, which it is, and it's going to accelerate even more, that the head and the brain and the intellect and the stress were going to increase, and the polarization between the head and the heart was going to increase. And this is back in the late 80s. And that a simple system to help people connect with their heart, soul, spirit, and be able to integrate heart, mind, brain, nervous system was needed for people to really develop that intuitive discernment, the age of intuition that we're moving into, and the age of holistic awareness. That was the potential at the same time as this incredible shift that he foresaw, and we all foresaw, going on the planet. But that there had to be science, there had to be underpinnings of a scientific validation. And so that's what we set out to do and why we call it heart math, which is kind of like an oxymoron, just like transformational technology could be seen as one. So these are some of the clients we've worked with, Mayo Clinic, Sony, and we are mainstream B2B and have been for quite a time, just building the foundation through research and outcomes. But our mission and our focus has always been to create a transformation process where people could connect heart, mind, emotion, spirit, get aligned, get connected, and become more of who they really are for more fulfillment and for more health, wellness, but also higher consciousness. Wasn't able to use the consciousness term even until the last couple of years in most mainstream settings. So it's wonderful to be able to be more vulnerable now as things move on. So we looked at everything. And as you explore what you might want to do in transformative technology, I want to talk about what Mikey was saying is follow your heart, listen to who you are. What is your growth process? Because what you create is an expression of that. And we were looking, where do we find love in the human body? That was back in the early 1990s. Where do we find it in the human system? Is it in the brain? We looked at EEG, galvanic skin response, EKG. And Doc Childrey, who never graduated from high school, said, why don't you look at the spaces between the heartbeat? We went, the what? And so we found out there was something called heart rate variability that was used for fetal monitoring. And we set up in our research lab, we founded the research lab with a lot of well-known players in the whole field of brain research and cardiology research. And it was a very exciting time in the early 90s. And what we found is these beat-to-beat intervals created a pattern, and that pattern reflected our emotional state. And if you look at that top graph, that heart rate variability pattern, the more angry, the more frustrated, the more judgmental, the more hateful, resentful, impatient, all the stressful emotions you are, the more jagged and earthquake-like it looked. It was a direct reflection of what we felt inside. And that was like blow away. That we could actually see that mirrored in our heart, in actual the pattern of how our heart beats. How much more source connected or fundamental could that be? And then we looked at when we got into states of genuine love, compassion, care, appreciation, kindness, forgiveness, genuinely heartfelt states, the shift could happen within 10, 20 seconds from the top to the bottom graph. This is the same person who used our quick coherence technique. That technique that Mikey just led you through, breathe through the heart and activate gratitude. Find something, feel grateful. We could feel the energetic shift in the room to more heart. You can feel that in yourself. And it's the energetic heart, which is our connection to our soul or spirit, that is being represented in this connection of this heart waveform. And we called it a coherent waveform because it was a sine wave, a coherent wave. But we found more than that, any one of these positive attitudes or feelings could activate it. We found that your core values, connecting with that, if you were in the military, with your honor, with your patriotism, with your respect, put your system in coherence. We found that courage, a lot of these qualities, but it had to be genuinely felt. And that was the key. Love or care, not just thought or visualize, that didn't do it, but this genuine feeling would actually create this heart rhythm coherence. And we found that that state is what synchronized all the body's rhythms, including the brainwave rhythms. So it was actually, when we put EEGs on people or other types of biofeedback, they all synced up, including blood pressure rhythms, respiration rhythms. So this was very exciting because we were connecting directly with our source, with who we are, and seeing it in simple terms of the heart rhythm. Now, what did that mean? Now we started looking at the brain and body, and what effect does that have? And that's where it got very, very exciting, because the heart rate variability pattern, whatever it is communicated to the brain through the vagal nerve. And that vagal nerve, the 90% of the traffic between the heart and brain is afferent, means it comes from the heart to the brain, with the heart telling the brain what the body feels, with neurons that learn, sense, feel, and remember, independent of the brain and the head. And the brain and the head is this incredible, wonderful sensory organ and pattern matching system. So the core cells of the amygdala that hold on to emotional memory synchronize to the pacemaker cells of the heart, the heartbeat. So as your heart rhythm pattern goes, that's the signal that's being processed by the amygdala, which is going to bring up all the historical angers and frustrations and retributions, and there's a vicious feedback loop. But if we can activate heart coherence and learn to shift just to get to neutral, regain our emotional composure, realign our heart, brain, and emotions just through simple, quick coherence techniques, we send a different signal to the brain, to the thalamus that synchronizes cortical function, and to the amygdala that allows us to raise our consciousness pitch, to go, to have our intuition and our amygdala, our centers, and our frontal lobes say, maybe there's a better way to approach this. Maybe we shouldn't keep repeating the same old patterns historically in our own personal or social or economic lives. It allows for new consciousness to come in, balancing the hemispheres of the brain. That coherent heart pattern we found over and over. It still gives me chills to even talk about it. People think it's too simplistic because we all are going in and out of it all the time. But to be able to know when you're really there and not fool yourself thinking you're there, but to really feel when you're there and make that activation. That's why we ended up creating a lot of techniques and tools to shift there. But we weren't able to take the big lab equipment until technology advanced where we could create a computer-based program called the Freeze Framer, which we did in 2000. And that's when Quantum Intech, our Heartmath skunkworks company, Quantum Inner Technologies, was founded. And that's where we started to develop the technology. We tried to translate this learning we were having since 1990 and working with companies and Motorola and a lot of the military with the techniques to get into coherent with this big lab equipment into technology. So the lesson learned here is continually know that technology is going to keep evolving. Find out what it is you're called to do. What part are you called to play in all of this? As you move, have assessments. Keep going with validation and outcomes, because the subjective experiences there are going to be 1,000 of them. And those who have validation are the ones that are going to be able to scale. And the validation we found, we wanted to see what's sustainable, what behavior change is really sustainable, and what was involved in that. And it's really resetting neural patterns. It's really a baseline shift. And that a baseline shift in our amygdala or in our operating system, or in our learning capacity, or in our emotional composure and our health and wellness, really require this alignment of heart, brain, nervous system. And that coherence helped give us a leg up. It's not like it's activating that first enhanced every other meditation practice we played with, every other methodology and modality, because people were getting in sync. And you know what heals? It's spirit coming through. It's who we are in other dimensions, quantum levels. That's what we're opening to. And that's why we've stayed focused on the heart. So we had several steps in our process, and we evolved them as we saw the need as we went. So be open to that. Be open to what's next. And you can learn that by listening to your own heart intelligence, not just being pulled by an economic driver. It's all going to come together, and we do need to eat while we do this, and we do need to raise investment. And the investment community is just starting to open up to this, as we could see when Tim Chang talked the other day and others. But especially if you look at the Fitbits of the world and the zillions of trackers, they're going to all flush out, and there's going to be a few that end up. What's the differentiator? And we found that learning assessments, and we weren't planning for this, but we developed all of these methodologies. We developed a whole coaching practice, teaching Heartmath, certifying coaches. We developed certified health professional training programs. And this isn't just for the technology. This is the 10 core Heartmath techniques and tools we developed in the lab in order to make these shifts, these baseline shifts, to clear out old junk in ourselves through the power of the heart, through the power and the intelligence of heart coherence, through activating our intuitive discernment, which coherence helps us do, so we can shift from stress or emotional eating to intuitive eating. Because that intuitive connection is the next phase of what we all want in our consciousness lifting. And as we have more connection with each other on this heart coherent level, we bring in more downloads of intuitive consciousness. This is the pathway. This is why we call it Heartmath, the pathway. But it starts with the heart. And so we found that here we are. The last 2 years, we're now a startup again. We brought our inner balance available on the iPhone, which we couldn't do. You know, the iPhone didn't even exist when we were working with this and when we started. But now the possibility of a whole ecosystem is what's really exciting. And where big companies are coming to us now. One did a press release, Samsung, but there's dozens of others now who recognize heart rate variability as a key biometric for managing and reducing stress, increasing resilience, improving health outcomes. And so we're putting it all together to activate this baseline shift. And of course, it's our outcome data. So that's what I encourage you to do. Build in what you do, testing and measuring and validating. This is a huge N-size sample, but average 44% drop in depression. And I mean, all of these are incredible results that are replicated now through our training programs. And the technology that becomes the feedback to keep you honest, to keep you motivated with gamification and rewards to keep you on track. And so the physical symptoms of stress, the same thing, incredible outcomes because it's all connected. They're not separated. You manage the mental and emotional, and the physical lines up. But what's missing for a lot of us, and I know I've been a 40-year meditator, and when I started using some of these techniques that we developed from the lab, it closed some gaps for me. Because you can meditate 20 minutes and then go get angry when you watch TV. And you lose the energy you've built, the resilience. You can justify anger and frustration and impatience. You can get out of sync during the day, and you never get past a certain baseline of consciousness. And when I began to activate heart coherence and built some new neural circuitry of that, and be able to use some of these techniques you use in action while you're moving through your day and between my meditations, things accelerated for me tremendously as far as my connection with something larger, as well as my consistency with that. So you really want to have a baseline shift in your own consciousness and sustainability. And what we found here is healthcare workers, nurses, experience this baseline shift in positive outlook and attitude, and they have the highest healthcare costs of any occupation. And then we looked at sustained outcomes over the years with massing more and more data on these normed and validated assessments that we use. And we found after 6 months, there was a baseline shift, a permanent change, not only in the heart rate variability pattern, more natural coherence appearing, but also in attitudes, in health, in perspectives, in consciousness. And this was a Mayo Clinic study, one of our clients where we work deeply within their system with their nurses, with care for their caregivers. And you can see after 7 months, the oncology nurses, how much was sustained. This type of emotional composure, this type of training, using technology to facilitate us becoming our best selves, moment to moment, day to day. That is what is shown in these outcomes, in these sustained outcomes. So I encourage you to build in whatever you do, research, assessments, how you're developing your technology, your patents, which can be helpful. These days, patent law is changing a lot. How you license them or how you decide to go to market. And then keep testing and validating. You know, our inner balance technology, which just came out 2 years ago, it has just been incredible, adding gamification and connecting to the cloud. We couldn't do that before. Before, our M-Wave technology, the handheld that I just showed you, which some of you have seen in our booth, that won the Computer Electronics Show Last Gadget Standing People's Choice Award when we first brought it out in 2009. It was just novel to have a handheld something or other. Now it's just moving at lightning speed. So combining the cloud, the training, the coaching, all the possibilities, the gamification, giving people rewards, what motivates behavior change? What motivates sustainability? I think that's the main lesson we learned, and to help you cut through and get above the noise of all the stuff that's going to come out there in technology and delivery systems. Find out what your heart's being called to do. Get into coherence yourself with others. See what downloads you get. Follow that and then validate as you go. One thing, and talk about working with others, is we create a field environment as we put out heart coherence. You can feel it in an uplifting church. You can feel a negative field environment when people are arguing. We found this study, which was done by an independent organization, an Australian institution, that 3 people around a card table, and there were 10 card tables, who practiced getting into heart rhythm coherence, were able to elevate or entrain a 4th person into this heart coherent state where they didn't even know what was going on. They were just hooked up. Multiply the power of that exponentially, and the connections we can have energetically with each other, with spirit, to be able to really address some of our social problems. I mean, we have tons of client comments about how it helps them in the moment to moment, in traffic, watching TV and seeing the Republicans or Donald Trump, and not getting freaked out. Being able to go back to the heart and access, there's a higher compassion, there's a higher wisdom guiding all this. And then being able to take the Heartmath ecosystem, as we've done, all the way from a system on a chip for Heartmath inside all these wearables. That would be our gift now, is to be able to utilize the ecosystem that we've created and validated and provide that to licensees, to partners, to collaborators, all the way with our assessments, our outcome data, our chronic stress algorithm, our current stress algorithm, our group coherence, the collective coherence algorithm, and develop apps from that, and develop ways we can affect consciousness in workplaces, in healthcare, and in individuals. And right now we are working on continuous monitoring HRV. That is the holy grail. It's too much noise in battery power issues right now to do it. But within the next year or 2, that's coming, and that's going to be a huge breakthrough for people. So our goal is heart intelligence, to help people connect with that in themselves. And the heart is the key driver. You can't leave the heart out of the equation. Whatever you're doing with psychedelics or pills or induction or EEG or skin response, it's all fabulous. But we need to include and remember what it's about. It's about the heart. It's about love. It's about care. It's about compassion. It's about our connection with each other. That's where humanity is going to solve our social and economic and global problems. And it starts with our personal issues, but it starts with the heart. And heart coherence is just not heart math. It's inside you. It's inside each of us. The math of the heart and unfolding that connection to our spirit is inside each of us. So thank you so much for all you do. And if I can help, let me know.